Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Randy. Thanks for joining me on the channel today. And as always, I hope you guys are all doing well. So, we are headed into bloom season here in the United States, or I might say in most places in the United States. And a lot of you have had questions about what it's going to take to get your plant to bloom again and where might you look for blooms. And so, if that's the information you're looking for, you found the right place. So, let's get at it. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. And if you've been to the channel before, welcome back. If you haven't done so, please go on and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you can be notified of new content. And if you like what you see in the video, before you leave, just go on and give it a thumbs up so I know that I'm providing you content that you guys need or want. So let's get right into the meat and potatoes of what we are here for today. So a lot of times I get questions about plants, and people will say either they're new and they have a plant that dropped its blooms and they're wondering when they're going to get a bloom again. And I also have people that say, I've had this plant for years and years and I've never gotten it to rebloom, excuse me. And so that is probably one of the biggest questions I get all the time. I know I say that all the time, but it really is truly one of the questions I get all the time. And so today I want to try to give you as much information as I have on what I believe gets it to bloom. A lot of this is not scientific. It's just kind of come from my experience over the last 8 to 10 years that I have been, dealing with orchids and growing orchids, and especially rescuing orchids. So let's start from where your plant might bloom from. So there's usually two places or two ways you're going to get a new bloom. First place is you're going to get a new spike or a secondary spike that comes off of the spike that you already had if you didn't cut the spike off. And then the second place is that it will shoot out a new spike. And I'm going to show you some close-ups and let's talk about each one. So this particular plant, as you can see, this is viola. For those of you that's on the Black Orchid Project, you know this is viola and that's viola. And viola has a secondary spike, meaning that this was the original spike. You can see it here, and it came up and it was a spike. And then that spike died off, or the blooms died off, and I just left it. It actually died back some, and it shot up a secondary spike from one of the nodes. So there's a lot of controversy. Some people say cut the spikes. Some people say don't cut the spikes. And then there's people that say don't cut the spikes unless they die off. And so on this particular one, if you've been around the channel for quite a while, you know I was a spike cutter. As soon as my blooms dropped, I cut the spikes. And that was because I wanted the plant to give more energy to growth than it would to trying to kick out another spike. And I'm going to get into why that is when I talk about where they bloom from. So on this one, as you can see, like I said, it threw out a secondary spike. Now, this is what it'll look like. It'll look like it'll be perfectly green. As you can see, this one, I didn't cut it. Because I did want to start doing some experimentation. That's the only way you're going to learn is by doing experimentation. Now, is this going to stop me from getting a new bloom this year? Maybe, maybe not, but I'm going to find out, and I'm willing to take the time to find out. As you can see, it's still green, but I also have a brand new leaf here. So it's in growth mode, not in bloom mode, but it's going to be interesting to see if this stops growing, so it pops out a new bloom here. And then this is the one that made me want to do this video. As you can see, this one I also didn't cut the spikes, or I didn't cut the old spikes. I just left them. But as you can see real here, and I'll get you a close-up, there is a new spike coming from here. But notice these are dead. You're not usually going to get a spike, or from what I know, you're not going to get a new spike if you have an old spike. More than likely, it's going to shoot a spike up from another spike, from a secondary spike out. So with this one, since it died off itself, and I'm going to clip these, be honest, 100% honest with you. The reason why these are still here is because I don't know what plant this is, and I need to go back through all my videos and things and pictures to find out what spike this or what plant this is, just so I can kind of ID the flower, and I hadn't gotten to it yet, and lo and behold, it's getting ready to throw up another spike. And so once these die off, or if you cut them off, it's going to throw up another spike, usually from the second node here. So let's talk about that real fast. The reason why I always cut my spikes off was, like I said, I just felt like it was an energy deal. If it's giving energy to the spikes, it's not giving as much energy to the plant. And so as you can see, this plant really has been through it. I think this came from it just being too close to the window, and I think, you know, we're coming out of Texas heat, and I think it was sitting up against the window. It got hot one day, and so it didn't like that, and it started to kind of burn these off. But it obviously is doing well. You know, this is the newest leaf, but we got a spike, so we obviously know it's doing well, and obviously you can see we have some nice green roots here. Now let's really talk about this, and I'm going to do this in an up close video. The way that they spike, or they throw out new spikes, on the second leaf up. So if you can see here, there is the spikes, and this one is a double spike, but you can see there's the spikes, and then there is another set of leaves, and right in that set of leaves is where all these new roots have come from. So you have a spike layer, and then you have a root layer, and usually above the root layer, one or two leaves up, you're going to get your spike. So spike, root layer, maybe one or two root layers, and then you're going to get a spike. I've never seen a spike layer and then a spike layer. So if you want to go look at your plant, you can look and see, like, do I have two sets of leaves, or at least two leaves on above the last spike layer? If you have two sets of leaves above the spike layer, then there's a good chance you might get a spike this year, given the conditions, and we'll talk about that in just a second. If you only have one leaf, then there's a good chance you're going to get more roots, or you're going to get root layer before you get a spike layer. And so that was one reason why I would cut my spikes, usually right after it bloomed, because that way it's giving more energy to the spikes. And if it's not going to give me a secondary bloom or a secondary spike off the same one, then that's going to give it time for me to get 2 or 3 leaves up above that last spike layer. So hopefully I can get another bloom the next season. So that is why I cut mine, and that is a quick rundown on why or where you might get a spike from. Now let's talk really quick about what causes your plant to spike. Now again, this is just from my experience, and I've only lived in Texas since I have been growing orchids. And so I can't give you, for one, this is not scientific for me. I'm not a horticulturist. I'm not a orchid expert. This is just purely experience. So I do know there is a little contention on this subject, and I think it probably is somewhere in the middle from what I'm about to say. But so take that with a grain of salt. But it has worked for me, and it seems to work year after year. And first and foremost, it seems to me, some people are, let's just say, let me get out the way what people's thought about this is. And that one, it's a light, that when the days are shorter, then it causes a bloom, or throws a spike, or causes a bloom. Other people, myself, believe it has to do with temperature. And so what I've found and what I've heard and kind of done some research and kind of charted over the last couple of years is that when there is a temperature change that's more than 20 degrees, with the high being no higher than about 85 and the low being below 65 for a continued amount of time, that's when I feel like I start to see spikes. And so, like I said, we're going into bloom season. So where I am, Right now, we're getting into like 87, 85-degree temperatures in the daytime. At nighttime, we're getting down to like 63, in the 60s, down in the 50s. And that's when I start to see a lot of spikes. And so this happened for us probably about 3, 4 weeks ago. We started to see a big change in temperature. And again, I believe this is the first spike I've gotten. The other ones, if you follow me like on Instagram, I've gotten some blooms, but I feel like all of those are secondary blooms, whereas I feel like this is a true new spike. And so now I'm starting to watch my plants to see if I'm starting to get other spikes, because we are in that range, 85 down to the high 50s and things like that. So you want that temperature change. Whenever somebody contacts me and say, I've had this plant for 3, 4 years and I've never gotten it to bloom again, my first question is, where do you keep it? And they say, well, I'll keep it on, the mantle, or I keep it on a table in my front room. And the first thing I always tell people is to move it closer to the window. All my plants basically sit in the windowsill, so they are getting a fluctuation of temperature throughout the day. So try to keep your plants as close to a window during bloom season or during growth season as you can. As somebody who comes out of the bonsai world a little bit, I'm not a bonsaiist, I did study it some. The thing about bonsai is that everybody wants them in the house, but really they grow outside. So they're not a staple in your home. They grow outside, and then you bring them in the house for show when it's time to show them, and then they go back outside. That's kind of the way I feel about orchids, and we all want our orchids, in the place that we keep it, and we want to show it. But if you wanted to get it, if you want to get it to spike, you're definitely going to want to keep it in a place that's going to cause it to spike. So like a windowsill, or something like that, a greenhouse or something like that. And then once it blooms, it goes into a decor pot. As you can see, this is not even a decor pot. It goes into a decor pot, and it goes into a place that will allow you to show it when it's blooming. And so when it's blooming, it doesn't seem to really matter where it is. It doesn't need the light. It doesn't need the temperature fluctuation. It actually seems like all you needed to do is to bloom, to spike then. You need to initiate that spike, and once that spike is initiated, you can actually put it where you want it, for show. Now, I'll usually keep mine in place, by the window, at least until I start to see buds. And then once the buds come out is when I will move it. So for me, I really believe that it's more of a temperature thing than a light. It's a temperature more than light. However, just for disclosure, when we start to get cooler, there's also a big lighting change too. But I do know that, a lot of people that have their plants on lights, if there's no temperature change, they're still not seeing a lot of budding, I believe. Now, if that's different, please let me know, because again, I'm learning just like you guys are learning. I'm just passing on information. And another reason, like California, place like San Diego, where you have temperatures like that all year, a lot of times those are people that can get secondary spike buds, because they're in that temperature range all the time. Here, we get really cold, then we get really hot, of course, in the summertime, and then it starts to get into that time of season where, like I said, we can get buds. So that's where I'm going to leave off on this particular video. I don't want it to be too long, and I just don't want to feel like I'm rambling on, just kind of wasting your time. I hope I gave you the information that you came looking for, and I hope it helps your plants. If you have questions, of course, you can leave comments down below, and I try to get through every few days and answer questions. If I don't get right back to you within a few hours, please understand. I'll try to get back to you within a few days. I tend to answer questions faster on Instagram, so if you want to send me a DM, there you can also send me pictures, and it's easier for me to answer questions if I have pictures. And of course, if you become one of my Patreons and support the Black Orchid Project, they get first priority on, answering questions and things like that. Plus, there's a lot of perks. I usually do a plant giveaway every month, and I'm also I'm always giving away something. Like this month, I am sending out everybody a sample of my new orchid mix just so I can get an idea of how they feel about it, what I might need to change before I actually put it up for sale. So everybody's going to get a sample of that. So please consider becoming a Patreon. If nothing else, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you can be notified of new videos. And like I said, if you got something out this video, you enjoyed it, please go on and give it a thumbs up. That way YouTube knows I'm giving you information you like, and they will push it out to other people, and we can help other people keep their plants healthy, and in this case, maybe get a new spike this year. So that is going to do it for me on this video. As always, be safe. More importantly, be kind. Never give up on them. And until next time, peace.